The Eiffel Tower is one of the most famous landmarks on the planet. It is also officially recognized as the most visited monument in the world, and a fee is charged to enter its territory. Today, the French in general and Parisians in particular are proud of their highlight. Many of those born in Paris have never visited the Eiffel Tower. Copies and images of the legendary structure are sold in millions of copies, and there are practically no people left in the world who would not know what Eiffel's creation looks like. The grandiose structure was built especially for the World Exhibition, which was held in Paris in 1889. The tower was the gate to the exhibition. The French wanted to show that an ordinary gate could silence the entire planet, because at that time, the Eiffel Tower was the tallest structure in the world. Initially, the Eiffel Tower was not planned to remain in Paris forever. It was planned as a prefabricated and demountable temporary structure, which was supposed to glorify French design genius. However, the French authorities did not take into account that they might encounter problems with the construction of the tower. Protests began at the moment when the government made the final choice, rejecting several candidates and settling on the project of the famous engineer and architect Gustave Eiffel. They liked the tall tower made of metal, resting on 4 huge legs. But the Parisians themselves mostly took the view of this new-fashioned construction in a huff, and even called it the Scandal of Paris. When Parisians saw the project published in the newspapers and learned the size of the monument, they were horrified. An open letter was written and signed by many famous residents of the French capital, including Émile Zola, Charles Garnier, and Alexandre Dumas Jr. They wrote, "We, writers, painters, sculptors, architects, and lovers of the beauty of Paris sincerely express our indignation in the name of the defense of French style, architecture, and history against the inappropriate and terrible Eiffel Tower." Many people at that moment thought that such a grandiose construction would spoil the whole view and simply disfigure the city. Protests continued throughout the construction of the tower. Critics in the newspapers called the tower the disgrace of Paris, the tallest lamppost in the world, an iron monster, a skeleton of a bell tower, a clumsy skeleton, an unfinished factory pipe, a grill in the form of a bell tower, a sieve in the form of a candle, and many other unpleasant epithets. Guy de Maupassant, the famous and authoritative writer, was the most zealous. He simply hated this skinny pyramid of metal ladders, this huge, ugly, and skinny skeleton. Many people asked him why, having such a strong dislike for the tower, he came every day and had breakfast in the restaurant located on the 2nd floor of the Eiffel Tower. Guy replied that he did it for aesthetic reasons, because the restaurant on the 2nd floor of the tower was the only place in Paris where you can't see the ugliness. The next wave of hatred dates back to 1925, when the tower had already deteriorated considerably and required a major overhaul, which would cost Paris a fortune. Many argued that the price of demolishing the structure would be much lower than what would be paid for reconstruction. But at that time, there were already a huge number of fans of the Eiffel Tower, which was visited by millions of tourists every year. Not all Parisians wanted to get rid of it, so there was a lively discussion, including in the press. The Czech-born American adventurer Victor Lustig, who had arrived in Paris, read one of the articles about it. He quickly figured out how to make money from this controversy and from these rumors about the possible demolition of the Eiffel Tower. He sent a letter inviting several representatives of metalworking companies to a meeting. Lustig signed his name as Director General of the Ministry of Post and Telegraphy because by then the tower had already begun to be used as a radio antenna. At the meeting, Lustig announced to the metalworkers that the government was going to demolish the tower and was looking for a company that could fulfill a large government contract to recycle the metal from which the tower was made. He asked all interlocutors to keep this information strictly confidential so as not to provoke popular protests. Naturally, all the businessmen of the city who were in any way connected with metalworking wanted to get such a serious order. They handed Lustig a note with the price for which they were ready to perform the necessary work. The swindler chose not the one who named the lowest price, but the one who looked the most interested. In a private conversation with him, he hinted at his not the highest salary, making it clear that the fate of the order will depend on the kickback. In response, the businessman immediately gave Lustig a substantial sum in cash, at which point they struck hands and signed all the papers. After that, Lustig quickly left for Austria with the money, and the businessman, of course, was left with nothing. The story was not publicized. Hardly anyone would want to embarrass himself by telling how he had blundered. So Victor decided to pull the same trick again. But then he almost got caught in the scam and had to flee to the USA, where he would not be caught. The construction and life of the Eiffel Tower. Preparation: 18,038, metal parts, 5,300 workshop workers, 50 engineers and designers. Construction: 150 workers at the Levallois-Perret factory, 150 to 300 construction workers, 2,500 rivets, 7,300 tons of cast iron, 60 tons of paint, 5 elevators, duration 2 years, 2 months and 5 days of construction. Construction schedule: commencement of work, January 1887. Commencement of erection of pillars, July 1st, 1887. Achievement of the first floor on April 1st, 1888. Reaching the second floor August 14th, 1888. Reaching top and assembly March 31st, 1889. All the elements of the structure were manufactured in Eiffel's factory, located in Levallois-Perret, on the outskirts of Paris. Each of the 18,000 parts used to build the tower was specially designed and calculated, drawn to the nearest tenth of a millimeter, and then put together to form new pieces of about 5 meters each. A construction company that has worked on large metal viaduct projects provided between 150 and 300 workers, assembling this gigantic assembly kit. All the metal parts of the tower are riveted together, a well-established method of tower construction. The parts were first assembled in the factory with bolts and then replaced one by one with rivets during heat treatment, which shrank during cooling to ensure a very tight fit. Each rivet assembled required a crew of 4 men, 1 to heat, 1 to hold it in place, 1 to shape the flat, and 1 to hit it with a sledgehammer. Only a third of the 2,500 rivets used to build the tower were inserted directly into place. The posts are supported on a concrete foundation set several meters below ground level on top of a layer of compacted gravel. Each corner edge rests on its own support block, which exerts a pressure of 3 to 4 kilograms per square centimeter, and each block is connected to the others. On the Seine side, the builders used watertight metal caissons and compressed air to allow them to work below the water level. The tower was assembled using wooden scaffolding and small steam cranes mounted on the tower itself. 12 temporary wooden scaffolds, 30 meters high, and 4 large scaffolds of 40 meters each were used to erect the first level. Sandboxes and hydraulic jacks, replaced after use by permanent wedges, allowed the metal beams to be placed with 1 millimeter accuracy. On December 7, 1887, the docking of the main girders to the first level was completed. The parts were lifted by steam cranes, which themselves were hoisted up the tower as they progressed, using the guides used for the tower's elevators. It took only 5 months to build the foundation and 21 months to complete the assembly of the metal parts of the tower. It took only 5 months to build the foundation and 21 months to complete the assembly of the metal parts of the tower. Given the rudimentary means available at the time, this could be considered record speed. The assembly of the tower was a marvel of precision, as all chroniclers of the period agree. Famous people of the time did not accept the tower, hurling insults like this truly tragic street lamp, Léon Blois, this skeleton of a belfry, Paul Verlaine, this iron mast of gymnastic equipment, incomplete, tangled, and deformed, François Coppée. The tower is this tall and skinny pyramid of iron ladders, this gigantic, clumsy skeleton at the base, which looks built to carry a colossal monument to Cyclops, but which simply turns into a ridiculously thin form, like a factory chimney. Maupassant, a half-built factory chimney, a carcass waiting to be filled with stone or brick, a funnel-shaped grating, a suppository with holes. Joris Karl Huysmans. When the tower was built, the criticism melted away in light of the tremendous popular success with which it was met. 2 million people visited it during the 1889 World's Fair.